This is one of concern to a lot of Christians and a lot of religious people about the interplay between science and Christianity. And has science disproved Christianity in some way? There's a number of interesting ways to approach this, and so here's the first one. Last week I said that we're sunk, Christians are sunk, and Christianity is disproved if there is no soul, if there is no immaterial part of a human being that survives the death of the body. I mean, there's no point in, when Jesus said to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, that's an absurd statement if he is his body. So, part of Christianity is that we are not our body. I mean, we are joined to our body, but I am a self that is, for the moment, intricately joined to a body, but will not always be so. And then, I'll get a new body later on. So that's all part of Christian theology. A number of years ago, Time magazine brought the scientists together and did an article on the brain, and part of the brain dealt with what we will call the mind. And the big question is, are the mind and the brain the same thing, or are they different? Are they separate? And here's what they said. This is a quote from the article. I think it was 1995. Probably have it down here someplace. Yeah, there we go. July 17th, 1995. After more than a century of looking for it, brain researchers have long since concluded that there is no conceivable place for such a self, meaning a soul, to be located in the physical brain, and that it simply doesn't exist. So, 1995, the scientists concluded that there is no such thing as a soul, an immaterial self that is you. That you are, the mind is the brain, and you are your physical body. Look at what we're talking about here. An immaterial self. An immaterial. What does it mean for something to be immaterial? It means not physical, right? So, a number, for instance, the number 5 is not material. It's an idea, it's a concept. We can represent it by, making a mark on a piece of paper, but the number itself is not physical. So that's why this is a category error. They're mixing the categories of physical things like a brain with a non-physical thing like a soul, or read mind. So there are certain mental functions like intents, wills. I have intentionality. I have awareness, first-person self-awareness. A lot of these things are we would call soulish functions because they occur in the non-physical realm. Ideas and thoughts and so forth. They may correlate with physical activity that goes on in the brain, but they're not exactly the same thing. Because if two things, here's something I should put on the slide. If two things are identical to each other, like if the mind and the brain are identical, if we're talking about just one thing and not two, then everything that is true about the one is also true about the other. So if the mind and the brain are one thing, then everything that is true about the mind is true about the brain. Well, we can see that that's not the case because they have different properties. They do different things. So that's the category error that these scientists fell into, is thinking, is sort of like Yuri Gagarin, when we talked about last week. He went up, orbited the Earth, and looked around and he said, I don't see a God here. Therefore, one doesn't exist. At least that's what Nikita Khrushchev attributes to him. It's like someone is saying, there's an invisible man in this room. And you say, well, I looked everywhere. I didn't see an invisible man. Okay, you get the idea. So got to make sure that we don't overlap categories of things that we're talking about. There's a website. You can check it out, kidswithoutgod.com. And it's an interesting website, and it has different sections for younger kids, for teens, there's videos and so forth. But in the children's section, they introduce a character by the name of Darwin, and it's this dog right here. This dog's name is Darwin. And Darwin's going to tell us that we're going to find some things out about Darwin. Darwin likes stories, and he likes to play, and he likes it. And he likes the stories written in these old books about heroes of old and things that happened. But these books were written a long time ago, and they're fun to read about. But they're we can't really say that these stories are true, because Darwin, he only believes things that are true that he can see. In fact, here's part of the book. The little book that they have on the website says Darwin is a humanist. He believes in being a good person even though he doesn't believe any of the gods from his stories. Okay? So the stories are pleasant and nice and they're fun, but you don't really believe them in the same way that you believe other things. And here's what Darwin believes. Darwin loves using his imagination, but he only believes in things he can see in the real world. Okay? Get that. Darwin loves using his imagination, like these old books about gods and stuff, but he only believes in what he can see in the real world. The real world. So only physical things. Only the real world. Only things like friendship and being nice and learning. Now, do you notice a problem? What is the problem? Jessica? What's the problem? Okay. These are not physical. Okay. Friendship. You can't see it. Being nice. You can see the behavior, but the niceness is a quality of the behavior. You could have the exact same behavior, and one is being nice and the other is being mean. One is pushing somebody out of the way of an oncoming car, and the other is pushing somebody away to be mean. So it just points out the irony of the physicalists trying to live in the real world and trying to adhere to their categories of only physical things are real, and yet